Hello, and welcome to my channel. Today we're gonna talk about winners and losers from the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I thought it was a fitting topic since 4 years has now passed since the full-scale invasion started. Well, a little bit more actually, but we can see some patterns crystallizing in the form of winners and losers from a geopolitical perspective. So let's dive straight into it. I would claim that the biggest winner is China. China had a close partnership with Russia, but now it's very clear that Russia is the junior in that partnership. Russia is extremely dependent on China for imports of everything from consumer goods to dual-use goods like machine tooling and similar. And naturally, they are earning a lot of money on that. That's a market that European countries used to have to a large extent. But with sanctions, they stopped that. China has also driven a hard bargain when it comes to the importation, specifically in regards to oil. They are receiving a huge discounts from the Russians. How much? We don't know. But it's definitely significantly under the market value. And that naturally can fuel their economy with cheaper hydrocarbons. They've also learned a lot. You know, the Russians, we assume, share a lot of intelligence with China. So they can learn how the different Western weapon systems are performing, weapon system they might face if they ever decide to invade Taiwan. And they can also learn how Russian systems are functioning against those and the tactic of drones. So they are gaining a lot of information that way. The second winner, maybe a little bit surprising, but I would put North Korea from a geopolitical perspective. North Korea have an insignificant economy and they have always had a relationship with Russia. But when the Russian Federation started to have a shell shortage, then suddenly that relationship became very close because North Korea had humongous stockpiles of ammunition. Not great quality, but they had it in quantity. It's estimated that they exported about 8 to 12 million artillery shells to the Russian Federation, and of course got well paid for that. In addition, they even sent troops to, when Ukraine had done an incursion into Kursk region, the North Korean helped to repel it. So they gained battle experience from drone warfare and also could see and evaluate their command structure and similar. So their army is now battle tested. The estimations are that they send about 12,000 soldiers, and it's believed that a couple of thousand, 3 to 4, probably died. So they paid a high price. But from the North Korean regime's perspective, that was a low cost in order to have such a close relationship with Russia, earn a lot of money, and also gain a lot of information and knowledge in regards to modern warfare. A little bit lower on the list, but still a big winner, is Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan had been in a conflict with Armenia for a long time. Azerbaijan is closely aligned actually with Turkey. And Armenia had, so to say, Russian peacekeeping troops to help to protect it. They have a conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh. And now with Russia very busy and fully engaged in Ukraine, Azerbaijan could, so to say, win that war. And by doing that, they gained back territory and they became, in some ways, a regional powerhouse there. They have also had gas deals with the EU, so they are a big regional winners for this. Other winners are countries that stayed a little bit more neutral, at least when it comes to India. India, they did the same as China, and they had a hard bargain in order to import oil from Russia. And that made them, of course, earn a lot of money when you can import oil for well below market value. And then even sometimes they refined it and resold it to, for example, European Union. So India has gained quite a lot economically. And at the same time, kept good relationships with the West and with Russia. Other winners, I would put this Turkey. Turkey did the same as China and India. They started to import a lot of additional Russian oil, but once again, for a low cost. Even though Turkey has taken a stand for Ukraine pretty clearly, but they never put sanctions on Russia, meaning that they could also export a lot, meaning also their country could be a transit country when it comes to goods that were under sanctions, but it's not forbidden to export them to Turkey, and Turkey re-exports them to Russia. And they have got millions and millions of Russian tourists since the European Union closed its airspace for flights from Russia. But Turkey did not, so they can go there on vacation and spend their rubles. Other winners are gas exporting countries. Then I'm mostly thinking, for example, of Norway, which has piped gas straight to the European Union. Gas prices shot up. They got very well paid and at the same time became a strategic partner. But worth to mention is, of course, Qatar as well, and the US. And of another winner on this list, I would put the United States. They took a lot of leadership in the beginning, of course, under the Biden administration, including a lot of support. But they really showed that they are the superpower of the world and that they are the leaders of the Western world. And naturally, by Europe starting to rearm, it was good for the American arms industry. And when it came to the gas crunch or other hydrocarbons like oil, US was happy to supply. So they are a winner, even though under the Trump administration, naturally the relationship with the rest of the European Union has changed and it's now much more cautious. And then we can come to more neutral. I would put in actually NATO there. Even though NATO in the beginning of the war was extremely relevant and suddenly they find its cause again. And after the end of the Cold War, it has been difficult for NATO to really see what was their role. But with the new Cold War starting again, it was like muscle memory kicking in again. In addition, two countries joined, two capable countries, Finland and Sweden, which provided a lot of strength to their eastern flank, and specifically when it comes to the defense of the Baltic states. That said, with the Trump administration putting a lot of doubt when it comes to Article 5, and even making, should we diplomatically say, claims or the need to acquire Greenland, another NATO country's territory. Of course, that has changed the relationship a lot. To quote Carney, this is not a transition, it's a rupture. So NATO has both won and lost. Other more neutral countries, I would put in the Baltic states and Poland. They have both gained and lost something. What they have gained is more a place, that they are much more relevant because of their geographic position, and also that they have for a long time, literally in some ways, warned other EU countries of Russians' ambitions, and that we should be very wary of where their ambitions will take them. Now they look like prophets. What they have lost is, of course, that they had to spend a tremendous amount of money now on their defense. Poland, I believe, in 2026 will reach probably 5% just on their armed forces, and the Baltic states are not far behind. What the Baltic states also has gained is, of course, that since Sweden and Finland is there, it's much more difficult and it will be much more costly if Russia tries to invade them. They have to change their calculus a lot. I would also say more neutral is EU. EU has both gained, because clearly Ukraine has a tremendous ambition of joining EU. It has helped to, EU has been in some ways the vehicle for European nations to coordinate themselves and to help and assist Ukraine. But at the same time, EU as a whole has been many times a bit fragmented. It has also showed its weaknesses, that if one or two nations do not agree, they can block. It has also showed that it's very wary of using its power. For example, the agreed 90 billion euro loan to Ukraine. If they really want to make a humongous difference, they could have tripled that, or maybe 400 to 500 billion euros. which would have made them a tremendous player and would have shown Russia that there is no way that you can financially break Ukraine. So they have both shown strength and weaknesses. Now we come over to more the negative side of the ledger. And there I would put in UN. Might surprise you, but if you think about it, it's natural. And then I talk about UN as a political organization. It really doesn't have a role to play in this conflict. Nobody, I would say, is waiting for the UN to mediate or to take initiatives in this conflict, even though it's the largest war in Europe since the Second World War. So I would say they have lost definitely some influence. Other losers are gas importing countries. And I would then put in specifically Germany when we talk about this, because they had a high dependency on Russian gas and also huge quantities. The whole of the EU suffered, especially in 2022 and 2023, because of high gas prices, trying to find new, what should I call it? Well, new markets, trying to find new suppliers. And that has been costly. And we even had tremendous high electricity prices through the union, which has hurt industries a lot. And if we take the German case specifically, they also need to rearm itself tremendously. So Germany, I would put, and a lot of the EU countries, because of the high costs of this conflict, as losers. But since they're rearming, they will probably geopolitically gain quite a lot in the coming 5 to 10 years. And then we come to the more larger, so to say, losers from this conflict. And there I would put in Belarus. Even though Belarus has not lost any soldiers, it was a staging ground, as we know, for the full-scale invasion when it was to attack Kyiv from the north. And with that came a lot of sanctions. After that, they tried to play a more neutral role, but they tied their destiny with the Putin administration or regime in this sense. And they are frozen out from the European market. And they have hostile neighbors now, very hostile. So Belarus is not gonna fare well in this assessment. And then, because of the high cost it has paid, I would put as the second largest, so I'd say, loser from this conflict, Ukraine. They have paid a tremendous high cost in specifically life. They have lost probably 100,000 of soldiers and tens of thousands of civilians. They have also gained quite a lot. They have gained, for example, a national identity. This is their war of liberation or of independence. And this will be part of, so to say, their history for a long time to come. But at the same time, also 20% of its country is now occupied. A lot of their cities has been completely destroyed. The World Bank, I believe, estimated that currently it's around $600 billion to rebuild Ukraine from all the damages, to not talk about all the suffering. But they've also, as I said, gained a lot with the geopolitically, and they built one of the strongest militaries in Europe. And they are, I would say, all Western militaries are now looking at Ukraine in order to learn the drone warfare. But the price has been tremendous. I would say the biggest loser, actually by far, is Russia. This is a war of choice for Russia. They didn't need to invade it. They did a tremendous miscalculation on, well, geopolitically. They thought Ukraine would fall. This war was supposed to be over in 3 days. Here we are, 4 years later, with estimated casualties of in the hundreds of thousands. They talk about over 300,000 dead soldiers and 1 million plus wounded. They have spent maybe as much or maybe more as $1 trillion from their wealth fund. Their economy is in tatters. And what have they gained? They've gained 20% of Ukrainian territory, but the territory they gained has been completely destroyed and mined. It's not economically viable, or it's not going to feed itself, so to say, for a long time. They've also lost a lot of allies, I would say. You know, if we're talking naturally, you know, Syria, They didn't have the bandwidth to assist Assad, and Syria was lost for them. The same in Venezuela. Maduro was a close ally of them, and they couldn't really lift a finger when it comes to that. And now we will see what will happen in Iran. And if also other lost from a geopolitical perspective is, of course, the different republics, the former Soviet republics close to them, are now very wary of the Russian intention and if they will be next. So tremendous amount of losses for, I would claim, very limited gains. This is how it stands now, according to me. It can, of course, change depending on how the war develops. We don't know. Well, currently we don't know, at least. But what do you think? And please provide any comments if you think that order is wrong, or no, this country actually gained a lot. Why didn't you admit it? And I see you next video. All the best. Ciao.